Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me as I explore the wide world of pens. And this video is going to focus on what I recently bought from Amazon. I usually do buy most of my pens on eBay or from pen makers, but occasionally, as I'm perusing Amazon, which I have a regular buying practice there, I find things that I find of interest and I want to share with you. So one thing that I always don't have enough of is syringes. So here's a nice set of syringes. And the price was good and they're well made and they arrived in a couple days. Here's a company that's been around forever. Established 1899, Speedball. It's a 1.5 millimeter. It has cartridges. And it's a calligraphy fountain pen. Interesting. In a few languages. And we'll find a description, which I think is quite nice. And it's in other languages. And as we look down here at the bottom, we'll see it's made in China. And the Speedball company, Speedball Art, is in Statesville, North Carolina, which is in America. And that brings us to this pen, a zebra pen. It's an easier fountain pen. This is in black. We flip it over. And again, we find some interesting dialogue. Experience stylish writing easily, which I think is a nice phrase. Stainless steel nib, fine point, 0.6. 0.6 is really close to a medium. And it is in 7 colors, which is nice. And then there's Find Zen in Your Zebra, which I really appreciate. And again, a nice guarantee. And as you scroll down here, we'll see that nice barcode when you're checking out in the checkout line. And the Zebra Pen Company is located in Edison, New Jersey, in the United States. Pen made in China, packaged in Mexico. Interesting global combination. So this is the pen we're going to explore. We're going to break it out of the bubble pack. We're going to compare it to some other disposable pens and see how this one rates. So I'm calling this my blister pack video. I should probably call it the Zebra Sensations video, but to me this whole blister pack is a way of using a retail distribution channel where you hang this from a display, you know, with those metal arms on it, and people can peruse them. The pen is very visible. It's easy packaging. You can put a lot of these in a carton when you ship them, so the shipping costs are relatively low. You don't have a huge gift box. And they are low cost, and they're meant to be low cost. And I like that. And I think it's good to explore these. And if you're near Staples, you may find this pen at Staples. There's been a few reviews on the Zebra pen. And obviously the pen to compare it to is the Pilot Varsity, which is around forever. And this one is probably close to 30 years old, and you uncap it and writes all the time. The other inexpensive pen, which is not disposable, is the Platinum Preppy. And the other one, which I spent a lot of time in my early pen days, is the Pilot Petite one. This has been filled with Noodler's Bay State Grape, and I haven't used it for a year. I took the cap off, and after a few scribbles on a piece of paper, it started writing fine again, which is just mind-blowing when you consider the ink that's in there and how long it is set. So we're going to open up the Zebra pack and take a look at these pens from their business end and see how some of them write. Well, here we have the pens. Their length is pretty similar, except for the Petite one, but that's a different pen in this category. The nice colored nib on the Preppy is really nice, kind of matches whatever ink you might put in there. Let's focus a little bit more on the business end and talk about what makes an inexpensive pen. So one of the things all these nibs have in common is no breather hole. They have a faux breather hole, kind of a stamped circle there at the bottom of this slit. These are all slip-on nibs. They all have what I would call a capillary ink system. You know, similar ink collector there, a lot of fins there. Let's flip them around and look at the backside. These are what I would call stamped nibs, similar to what a Lamy Safari uses. They may have invented this, I'm not certain, but they've been around a long time. And these are just pressed onto the feed, and there's various feeds. Some are clear, some are not. But this is probably the least expensive way to make a nib, and also to ensure that that nib and feed are properly assembled. I mean, once you slip the nib on, it's in place, it's not going anywhere. And for a beginner's pen, for an inexpensive pen, for a mass-produced pen, this design works very well. So before we start the writing part of this review, let's talk about the tactile feeling of this pen. Number one, it's extremely light. It's a pretty big size clip there. It's all plastic, which is also typical of this type of pen. It's pretty flexible. You can see there's that little knob there, so when you put it over the fabric, it kind of will grab it a little bit, but not too much. This pen comes in multiple colors, and this is a black version of the pen, so the primary color is black. It's labeled with some type of paint. I like it that it says ink level. It's not perfect in that decal that's put on. And this plug at the end is kind of crude. And I would say in general, this is definitely in the inexpensive version of how pens are made. There's a little bit of a gate from the injection molding. There's a line there through the clip where the mold didn't quite hide that, and they certainly didn't do any post-molding cleanup. It's a snap-off cap, and it works well, secure. It's a good size section, which is also what all the other pens have in common. The Preppy is kind of the smaller section, but that section works well for me. There's a sharp angle here, but it's well away from the nib, and I don't think too many people will be up there, but if you have to, it's doable if you want to hold it up that high. We give you the dimensions of that section. And as with all these disposable low-end pens, it posts very securely, very deeply, doesn't change the balance. So this is obviously a very easy pen to write with. Posted. We'll give you the lengths of the pen to put things in perspective. And now let's put some of that black ink on paper. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is as soon as I took this out of the blister pack, pulled the cap off, it wrote. And that's also something that's necessary, I think, in a pen like this that might be for a beginner who may not understand some of the nuances of fountain pens. Having it write immediately is an important aspect for it, so they get a nice rewarding experience when they open up the blister pack. In my experience, all of these nibs pretty much write the same. They're smooth, good flow, and some feedback, which is fine. They're not very wet, which also works well because a lot of people with pens like this are going to be writing on inexpensive paper, and you don't want a gushy pen, and you want something that dries quickly. work well for left-handed writers that need a fast-drying ink. So let's rate this pen. I'm going to give it a 6.9. It gets one check for the fact that it writes fairly well, and it gets one check as a good value, especially like the different colors. I wish I would have seen those before I bought this black one. So is this a pen for you? Well, I think it's a pen that anybody might have. If you're a knockaround person, you want to have an inexpensive pen, you could do the Varsity, you could do this one, you could do the Preppy, you could do the Petite one. So let's just write very quickly with those. So this nib has more feedback. This pen has been sitting for years. I think it's 30 years old. And it still has the same ink in it. I've never done anything to it. I've never had to wet the nib. It just writes. And you'd have to give kudos for Pilot for coming up with a pen like this. Whatever they did with the ink, it's not a fancy sealing system. They do have a cap liner in there, but it's just really nice. And let's just take a quick look at this Petite one, which is one of the first pens I reviewed in my channel many, many years ago. Then this basically has almost the same type of nib. It feels the same as the Pilot Varsity, which is not as smooth and has more feedback than the Zebra fountain pen does. So if that's something you're interested in, the Zebra pen certainly provides you with a nicer writing experience. And this is a fine nib, and the Pilot Varsity was a medium, and you can see it's a finer line. And this also was eyedropper filled with Noodler's Concord grape, Bay State grape, sorry. And that's certainly not an ink that most people would be comfortable with, but in this pen it works fine. Like I said, it's set for a year, and it pretty much wrote as I uncapped it, which is my experience with these Petite ones. Like the Pilot Varsity, the Preppy I haven't used enough to make that determination about it. I just don't need another type of pen like that. So let's go back to the Zebra as we finish up this review. Hopefully you've kind of enjoyed this look at a pen, which has been around for a really long time, has a whole bunch of different names to it, but it works. It comes in great colors. Here's some examples of those colors. And for a knockaround pen, you could certainly do a lot worse. It writes well, which is really what you want the pen to do. It's not going to wow people. You're not going to bring it out in an executive meeting and people are going, well, what are you writing with? What a nice pen. So if those are things that are important for you or some things that you want in your writing instrument, then these are not for you. But if you're a student with minimal funds and you're knocking around and you want a pen that's a little bit nicer than just a standard disposable ballpoint, then I would certainly put these on your list as something to try. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching. May you have many great writing experiences and find that writing instrument that encourages you to write, something that you can easily afford, and use it to have your writing be a little bit more expressive, look a little bit different than the standard ballpoint or rollerball can give you. So it's the end of this video. Hope you're all staying safe, healthy, and happy. We're going to say bye until the next video. It writes okay.